Okay, I have the topic of making connections and using prior knowledge. That's the comprehension strategy that I was assigned. And my name is Mackenzie Thorson. So, the lesson that I made today has the I can statement of I can make connections between my life and literature using prior knowledge. And the standard that I used was the grade 3 reading standards for literature, key IDs and details, ask and answer questions to demonstrate text. So today we will be making connections, and it's a comprehension strategy to find ways that students can personally relate to a text. And there's 3 types of those. The first one is the text to self connections. That's the one we're going to be practicing today. And some prompts for that are, what does the story remind you of? Can you relate to the characters of the story? Does the story remind you of anything in your own life? The next strategy is text to text connections. And for this one, it would be, what does this remind you of in another book you've read? How is it similar to things that you've read? It's about relating it to different books. And then there's text to world, and that's how does this remind you of things that you've heard of that don't exactly affect you personally, but things that happen in the real world. But today we're really just going to be focusing on the text to self. So when you do make connections, that can often help your understanding of the text more than other people that don't make those deep connections with it. So let's try to practice. So we're going to practice making some connections that we just talked about, and I'm going to read this short story, and we'll point out some text to self connections. So this story is called Stop Pulling My Hair. So I'll read it out loud, and it's kind of silly. It is kind of silly. So Camelia is 5 years old. She loves going to the park with Bruno, her father. They play ball and spend hours on the playground. On a good day, Bruno lets Camelia buy a treat from the small snack truck. One day, after playing all afternoon in the park, Bruno and Camelia stop at the truck for a treat. Bruno buys an apple for himself. Camelia gets a granola bar and some bubble gum. When they finish their snacks, they begin to walk home. I'm tired, says Camelia. Can you carry me? You're pretty big to be carried. Let's try this, says Bruno as he lifts Camelia and puts her on his shoulders. After a few minutes, Camelia starts pulling her father's hair. Ouch, said Bruno. Stop pulling my hair. It hurts. But Dad, she says, I'm only trying to get my gum out. So now, after we read that silly story, can you make any text to self connections? I'll give an example of what I would do for a text to self connection. So I can relate to this story because I used to go to the park with my dad when I was little, and we used to play on the playground and play ball. I've also gotten gum stuck in my hair before, so I can make that connection. And it's different from my life because I no longer go to the park and play with my dad anymore. So that's what's different from my life right now. So now that was me modeling it. Now I would like you guys to pull out your journals that you have here. Those are their ELA journals. And you are going to answer some journal questions that I have about that story, Stop Pulling My Hair. So I'll give you guys about 1 minute to discuss in your journal what happened in that story. Just a short summary. It can be 1 or 2 sentences just kind of explaining what happened. And then when you're all done, I'll know you're done when you have your pencils down and you're looking at me. So, right.
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
Perfect. The next one is what does this remind me of in my life? And remember what I said it reminded me of because I used to go to the park and play with my dad. So that's what it reminded me of. And it also reminded me of when I had gotten gum stuck in my hair. So what can you make a connection with the story in that? It doesn't have to be what I said. If you can just think back to the story. You can write whenever you want. And I would give them about 1 minute for the summary, and then 2 minutes. I have 2 more questions left to say. I would give about 2 minutes for those. I'm assuming that 3rd graders will probably need more time than my set-in 3rd graders will. Good. And then how is this similar? What is this similar to something in your life? That's kind of the same as that, but when it's similar, it could be something that kind of is happening right now, and that's something that reminded you of something in the past. So what is something that is similar, the story is similar to your life right now? You can write whenever you would like, whenever you have an idea.
What? Okay.
How is the story similar to something going on in your life right now? Good. Perfect. And then the last one is, how is it different from your life? So what's something in this story that's different from your life? So good. Okay, so now that you guys are done with the journaling, I'm going to have you, if I had more than just 2 kids, I would have a class discussion and have some people raise their hands about what they wrote down. But this one, we're just going to kind of, since we only have 2, we'll do some partner sharing and then also share out. So what did somebody write for what happened in the story? Raise your hand if you want to share out what you wrote. Holly, what did you write?
I wrote that the girl went to the park with her dad and they got snacks, and then the girl got gum stuck in her dad's hair.
Very good. Very good. So, who else can tell me the next question? What does this remind them of in their life? Yes?
I get snacks with my dad, and I go to the park with my dad, too.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. So I would just go through all of these with the rest of them for the rest of the questions and ask them. And if I think it would be a good opportunity for peer evaluation too, because if somebody shares out something that isn't exactly a connection, I think it would be a good example to ask, is this a connection, is this not a connection, and have the class decide. So that could be some peer assessment and peer evaluation for this lesson plan if I had more kids. So I would just walk around and make sure that they were all getting it. That would be one of my other assessment strategies. Listening in, joining in on their discussions. And do you guys feel like you can make connections between your life and literature now after learning this lesson, or I can statement? Okay, well, I will collect these, and you guys are done here. Good job. Awesome job.
Thank you.
Yep. And then, this is, when I collect them, this is how I'm going to record and track who really understood the concepts or not. I'll have a general idea just from listening into discussions and things like that. But when I read these through, I can make sure and know that who gets it, who doesn't, who needs more help. And then a differentiation for this is I could have the story printed out for some students to refer back to it as they're filling out their journals. I thought for this one, if they were just listening, they could get the most possible comprehension out of it instead of having to decode all the words and have them not exactly understanding what the story was telling. I could also have a sheet with some prompts on them for students that are having a hard time getting started in their journals. If they can't seem to figure out how to, start their sentences, have some prompts. And then 2 more activities that could go along with this concept is I would make a very similar lesson plan with probably the same story, and for the other 2 connections, so I would do another one for text to text and have similar questions where they can journal in their ELA journals, and then I would have another one with text to world connections where they could journal in their journal, and it would just be the same story. So I think that's all I need to say. Okay, perfect.